Hey guys, tell me, do you believe in aliens or UFOs? I know that people don't talk about aliens as much as they used to, but recently, my life was like a horror movie, and it was all because of my obsession with aliens. My name's Elizabeth, or Liz, as my friends call me. My story includes aliens stalking my family. Crazy, right? Our quiet life really turned upside down. My father almost lost his mind, and I was ready to just run away. It all started one ordinary evening when we heard sounds coming from the street. But before that, the lights went out in our house. At first, we thought that a fuse was blown. My dad went down to the basement, but everything was fine. Then we decided to check our house's electricity port, which was in the yard. We went out with flashlights and we found that there was no light in our and the neighbor's house. Mr. Willie, our neighbor, came to us with slight panic as if we had heard something suspicious. We shrugged our shoulders. And suddenly, I remembered that a couple of minutes before the failure, there was some kind of noise unknown to me. He said that he had heard the strange noise too, and that everything was fine with his electricity. And as soon as we wanted to call an electrician, the lights came on again. Mom screamed in fright, and then the neighbor said that a couple of days ago, when we were not home, the same thing happened. "I think something very strange is happening," he said, and Dad laughed. "What can happen? What? Are aliens attacking us?" Dad asked. But Mr. Willie's face turned pale. "So you think so too?" he asked. Dad reassured them that those were just fairy tales and wished him a good night. After, we returned to our house. The next evening, about the same time, we again heard some noises in the street. Only now it was louder. We ran out and noticed strange footprints in our lawn. They were like paws, only human in size. They had 3 fingers. At that moment, while we were looking at them, there was a terrible cry in the neighbor's house. Dad rushed to Mr. Willie's house. He didn't open the door for a long time, and Dad had to break in. When the door opened, we were shocked. Everything in the neighbor's house was trashed. The furniture was turned over. Mom wanted to call the police. Mr. Willie lay on the floor in fear, and he shouted, "No, the police aren't needed. It will make it worse. I knew it was them," he said, and began to cry, and then pointed to the rug in the house. The inscription, "You are next," was burned on it, and at the bottom, a sign of a paw with 3 fingers, exactly the same as the one in our lawn. "What is it? Did someone threaten you?" Dad asked, but Mr. Willie said he knew who it was. But if he tells us, we will not believe him. Dad insisted, and the neighbor said that a real UFO was here in our town, that many years ago, they had already come to this house and everything happened in the same way. Only then, they took his wife, and now it's his turn. We didn't believe him, but he told us that he saw everything with his own eyes. The police did not believe him, and therefore the case was closed. We were confused. His story was complete nonsense. But we helped clean up, and then my dad put him to bed. Before we had time to discuss what had happened, a bright light appeared in our window. They were blinding lights. We tried to make out at least something, but it was useless, and that strange noise was heard again, only this time like a hum. We ran out into the yard and couldn't believe our eyes. Something incredible flashed in the sky. It had a round shape, was large, and moved weird. We tried to see it clearly, but could not figure out what it was. At that moment, the neighbor ran out, and how he screamed, "That's them! There they are!" Immediately, the thing disappeared into the sky, and Mr. Willie began to cry again. We calmed him down again, and he said that the last time the same flying cruiser flew in, "Everyone thinks that my wife left me, but she was really abducted. Only I can't prove anything," he said. I felt sorry for him, but I really couldn't believe it was possible. However, in the morning, in our yard we found unidentified spare parts, details, etc. Dad said that they definitely did not belong to cars, and that he had no idea where they were from. Then we found flyers depicting aliens. It said something like, "They're coming for us all." The drawings were menacing. But seeing all these strange events, seeing these parts and drawings, I slowly started to believe it was true. We even started to discuss when and who was where the last time they saw or heard a story related to a UFO. I decided to use the internet to find the archives of these records on UFOs in our city. But there was little information there, so I went to the local library and found something. It seemed that in one of the articles of the newspaper, a case was described. It was very similar to the story told to us by Mr. Willie. I didn't want to believe it, but the more I dug into the information, the more it seemed to be true. My parents weren't happy about the findings either. We considered it our duty to take care of our neighbors, given that we'd found him like that. Every day we heard those same noises. Sometimes a bright light flashed in the middle of the night. It began to frighten us more and more. And then I realized that we'd be next and told our parents. Mom was anxious. "Where did you find this out?" she asked. But my research suggested that aliens operate according to an algorithm. They arrive once every 13 years. And 13 years ago, Mr. Willie's wife allegedly disappeared. We all started to become filled with fear. Not all of us began to believe in them. And when the moment came, our anxiety doubled. While we were sleeping, there was a noise inside the house. This time the same as outside. We got scared. Dad grabbed the bat that we bought a week ago. Mom pulled out a knife from under the pillow, and I took a tennis racket. We went down the stairs carefully and then quietly entered the kitchen. Oh my God! A sign was painted on the floor. Their sign. I felt that it was written in blood. Such a scarlet color. We ran out of the house, went straight to our neighbor and woke him up. He said that the inscriptions appear gradually, getting closer and closer to our bedrooms. And in the end, when they appear by the bed, a person disappears. This is what happened to his wife. He said that she did not pay attention, and then this happened. We were so scared. We didn't know what to do. Then he advised us to run, without hesitation. We ran into the house quickly and got all the necessary things, called the neighbor to come with us, but he refused. He said that he would wait for fate with dignity. My father loaded everything into the truck, and we drove towards another city in our pajamas. And after 5 minutes of driving, my mom remembered that she had forgotten some important documents. They were really important, so we had to go back. Dad drove us as fast and as best as he could. We arrived at the house, and Dad went into the house and realized that someone was there. He was so frightened, grabbed our lamp and shone it in the darkness. There was a scream. Then the lights came out. Mom and I ran into the light. There were people in our house, including Mr. Willie's wife. We didn't understand what was happening, and we needed an answer. Mom threatened to call the police, and then they said that they just wanted to take our house because they liked it for a long time, and it was worth a lot. So they basically decided to get rid of us this way. They asked for forgiveness, begged for forgiveness even. But Dad said it was not up to him to forgive, and called the cops. Now these freaks are in jail. Apparently they do this quite often, but our family was their biggest project to date. They will definitely have a lot of time in prison to reflect on life. And we used the money we won in court to fix the damages they made to the house. If you liked the video, then please leave a like and comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe.
Hello everyone, my name is Phil. Phew, I still haven't moved on from what I experienced, but I really wanted to share this story with you. This happened to our family 5 years ago. It was terrible. I think it's always hard to go through this sort of stuff, but I did not know it would be this hard. So my parents and my sister Josie and I moved from place to place constantly, almost every year for 3 years. It's not that we liked it because my father's work. He appreciated the job because it was well paid, and therefore we did not even want my father to quit. We moved from state to state. At first it was terribly difficult, but then we just got used to it. When Josie was born, my family said goodbye to the idea of silence because our little hurricane ran back and forth all the time. She adored hide and seek and just loved to be crazy. Sometimes it seemed to me that she was in such a hurry to live because she wanted everything at once. Sometimes I could not keep up with her. When we walked home from school, she ran ahead and teased me, and I had to run after her. When we came home, I was exhausted, and she hadn't even have any shortness of breath. My parents didn't like that she was playing hide and seek everywhere, but she loved to annoy us. Wherever we went, to the store, to the hospital, to friends' houses, she was hiding everywhere. We had to look for her with the whole family. For the new year, Dad gave her a special watch with built-in GPS, which was great. This was so that my mother knew her every move, so that we wouldn't search for a long time. Josie loved the watch, and she did not understand why we found her so quickly. A picture of her favorite Barbie was on the watch, and it said to her name Josie on the back. We asked her to never take it off, even at home, and it's good that she liked it. She didn't even take it off at night. We were told that this was age-related, and when she grows up, this game will no longer be interested to her. You just have to wait it out. So we waited. Meanwhile, Dad was told to move to another state again. We quickly packed up our boxes full of things and left. We tried not to get used to any house. Maybe that's why Josie always liked everything new. Just because ever since her birth, we moved somewhere new. We were lucky we came across friendly and nice neighborhoods everywhere. They helped us pack our things and then unpack. When we once again moved into another house, we were surprisingly delighted. More often than not, all our houses were picked by my father's company, for which they also paid for. In the new state, a 2-story house with a lawn was waiting for us, and there were a lot of rooms. Josie ran to the second floor first and chose a room for herself. I moved in nearby, my parents further down the corridor. The first floor had a kitchen, dining room, and living room. There was a lot of room to play hide and seek, and of course, my little sister started with this game, but we always knew that she was inside the house. After we finished sorting things out, we sat down to eat. Josie asked which school we would go to. I said that she would walk there with me and come back here. The same as always. The very next day we went to meet our classmates and teachers. All in all, the school was good. We both liked the building itself. It was clean, light, and well designed. I took Josie to class and told her that I would be waiting for her at the door at lunchtime. When all the lessons were over, I arrived a little earlier and sat on the porch and decided to have some lunch while my sister was not there. But then half an hour passed and she was still not there. I went up to her class and asked the teacher where she was. But the teacher looked at me in shock and said that Josie left slightly early from the last class and that said that I had come for her and the teacher let her go. I immediately thought that she was just hiding somewhere in the building. I took out my phone and tried to track the GPS. Aha, I'll definitely find you now, I thought to myself and turned on the tracker. The device took me to the backyard where all the kids were playing. I thought she was probably playing hide and seek again with the other girls. I approached and asked if she had seen my sister, but the girls said that no. I showed them a photo of her, but they shook their head again. The signal indicated that she was somewhere within the radius of 6 meters. I walked along the stadium and found a watch lying on the ground. I was very worried at this point because she never took it off. I panicked and called her. Everyone stared at me, but no one saw her. I immediately called my mother, and she rushed to school. We talked to the teacher, the director, even the police, interviewed absolutely everyone, but nobody knew where she was. And then I realized that this was no longer just a game of hide and seek. Tears filled up my mother's eyes. I called my father, and he asked for time off work given the situation, and soon arrived at the school. We looked through all the records with the police, but nobody said they saw Josie leave. It was assumed that she left the classroom with her things to the back entrance, but apparently there are no cameras in the back entrance. The nightmare began. We announced the disappearance of my sister, used a search group wherever possible. I created a group of volunteers where the high school students began to help us look for her. Everyone said they either saw her with me or as she left the classroom and nowhere else. I became desperate and tried to use the internet to find her, or any information that would help me. I was shocked to find that earlier that year, 2 girls of the same age as my sister had also disappeared. The source told me that they had disappeared without a trace and no one found them, so the case was closed. I located the addresses of the parents so I could find out more, but my parents and I drove to visit them. Their daughters disappeared in different ways. Someone from the cafe, someone on the way home, and also, this was terrible news for us and almost made us lose hope. But we're not going to give up. We searched for Josie every day, put up ads, made announcements on TV, radio, and anywhere in hopes someone would find her. As the months passed, there was less and less hope. The house became very gloomy. My parents cried every day, and so did I. I heard my mother arguing my father, but we all understood that we were doing our absolute best. A year passed. The police had offered to close the case. After our relatives could not take the pain, they suggested that we bury her without a body and have a funeral. For a long time, we refused to accept this idea, but after another year, my mother gave up. We couldn't believe it, but we buried our dear Josie. And on the day of the funeral, we relived the moment she disappeared. At this point, not an ounce of hope was left. Another 3 years passed. While we stayed in the city for all this time, Dad asked his company not to transfer him to another state. But then, something incredibly unexpected happened. While we were just sitting there with my parents having dinner, I remembered that Josie had disappeared that very day. We remembered her again, but only the sweetest moments. Every time I found her in hide and seek, she rushed the door and knocked like this. There was a knock on the door. We didn't know who would want to see us now, and looked at each other, and I went to open the door. As soon as I opened it, I was startled. There was a young woman on the door. She was dirty, wearing worn out clothes, malnourished and tired. "Phil?" Josie said, and I fell on the doorstep. "Josie!" I shouted. Parents jumped up and ran to us. We couldn't believe it. It was her, our Josie. We called an ambulance and immediately took her to the hospital. We were in shock and couldn't believe what was happening. My parents were crying, and I was crying with them. When we fed her and cleaned her up, Josie came to her senses, and she said that some bad people kidnapped her. She told the police that there were 2 more girls there, but they could not escape because they didn't know how to hide, but she did. She pretended to be playing hide and seek, and when they didn't find her, she ran away. But she remembered their faces and places. The police immediately went to that place. They found those missing girls. We also visited their parents. The criminals were arrested. They were mentally ill. They had imagined that they were simply their children, and so they did nothing terrible with them, but just had raised them as their own, didn't let them go, and forced them to call them mom and dad. Oh, it's finally over now. I'm so grateful that our Josie is alive and well. We have a lot to catch up on. So guys, please be careful. If you liked the video, then please leave a like and comment down below.